to demo an AI assistant called the Asana Task Manager. This AI agent can create tasks, assign them to your team, track projects, and notify you of overdue or incomplete tasks. Let's get started. First, go to SmythOS.com and log in. If you don't have an account, it's free to create one. We would love to have you join our community. Then we're going to click on the Templates button. This shows all the pre-built agents you can customize. You can filter the agents by use case or use the search bar. We're going to go to the Asana Task Manager and click on Remix. This gives us a pre-built agent to configure. We can see this agent uses two endpoints, one for retrieving tasks and one for creating tasks. We'll go through this in more detail later, but there's a couple other things to configure before we use the agent. We'll want to go to our Asana dashboard, click on the user icon, Settings, Apps, and then View Developer Console. Here, we're going to create a new Asana app. Let's name it something clear. Choose what we're using it for, and agree to the Asana API terms. Now that we've created the app, you can see that we have a client ID and client secret for us to use. We're going to add this into SmythOS later in order to set up the project. We're going to save our changes, and now we're going to go to OAuth. We'll want to add a redirect URL. This redirect URL will also be included in the documentation, so this way it's easy for you to copy and paste. And the last thing we want to do within the Asana Developers Portal is go to Manage Distribution. You can limit it to just a specific workspace, but I'm going to change it to any workspace, and then click on Save Changes. This agent also uses something called agent variables. Agent variables are values that can be used across any component. The Asana API uses Global IDs to access different parts of your account. Since this agent works with one primary project, it's sufficient to store these non-changing values as agent variables instead of making repetitive API calls. We have two variables, the Asana Workspace Global ID and the Asana Project Global ID. We'll need both in order to use our agent. To get these numbers, we're going to make what's essentially an API call in the browser. I'm going to go to the URL app.asana.com/API 1.0/workspaces. You can see it returns some data, including the GID number. We're going to copy this and then paste it into our agent. Now, for the project's GID, we're going to use the same URL, except we're going to change workspaces to projects. And now I'm going to use Control F to find a project that I want to use. Copy that. And once again, paste it into my agent. And then click Save. Variables was the project global ID and the workspace global ID. Individual users in Asana also have their own global ID. So we're going to make one last API call in the browser to get all users in a workspace. We're just going to copy this URL and just replace this area into brackets with our workspace ID number. This gives us a list of all users. We'll want to save this as an XML file. Once this is saved as an XML file, we're going to go to the Data Pool tab and add a data space. We can then upload our file. And click Add Data Source. We do it in this format to limit the number of API calls we have to make. We can add all of our member information into this data lookup component. So this way, our agent can just access the list of all employees and their corresponding global ID numbers. However, if you do want to get the most current information, we do have an Asana component called List Workspace Users. And this is a way where you can make an API call to get a list of all users in a workspace. Now we have all the information we need to configure the agent. The first thing we're going to do is go to the data lookup component and select the member list that we want to use. Then we're going to go to the Asana component and add in our client ID and client secret that we got earlier. To do this, we're going to click on the key icon, scroll to the bottom, and click on Add Key. This method is going to save our information in the Smith Vault. This protects our data since it's not explicitly available to the agent. Now I'm going to go ahead and paste in the client ID, save, and I'm going to do the same thing for the client secret. And click Save. And then we're going to click on the Authenticate button. You can see this window pops up asking for us to grant permission. We're going to click Allow. And now we get an alert saying that the OAuth authentication was successful. We're going to repeat the same thing for the other Asana component. Since our keys are now saved in the vault, we'll just select them from the dropdown. Authenticate variables by populating them in the relevant components. First, you can see this needs the workspace global ID number. I'm going to click on Edit. And when I click on this field, it populates the available agent variables. Click Save. Here it wants the project global ID number. Click Save. And we're just quickly checking to see if it needs it anywhere else. Looks like we're all good. We're ready to run the workflow in Asana. To do this, I'm going to click on Debug mode and then go to the beginning of our first workflow. Remember, this workflow is to get all the tasks assigned to a user in Asana. I'm going to click on the bug icon, and this is where I can enter my first input. So I'm going to put in the name Brooke because I want to see all the tasks assigned to Brooke in Asana. I click on Set to pass that variable into the data lookup component. I'm then going to click Set again, and we can see that it successfully passed both our query and the member list we added into the data lookup component earlier to our LLM prompt. And this LLM prompt is going to compare our query with the member list and match whichever name is closest to our query. And now we can check and see that I was able to successfully find Brooke and her global ID number in Asana. We'll click Set once again. And now it's passing on the global ID number to the Asana component in order to make an API call. It's also passing on the name that we're looking to the next LLM prompt we want to use. And when checking the response, we're able to see that we successfully got a list of all tasks assigned to Brooke in Asana. This next LLM prompt is just echoing the task information in the desired format we want to output to the user. And the final API output component shows us the final response that's shared with the user. So we can see Brooke's assignee global ID number, her name, and then all the tasks that are currently assigned in Asana. Perfect. For this next workflow, we're going to create a task in Asana. We have debug mode on, and we're going to click on the bug icon. We're going to name the task, put in the due date, add any notes we want the user to be aware of, and select our assignee. And I'm going to choose Brooke again. We click on the Set button, which passes on our initial query to the data lookup component. And it goes into another LLM prompt, which does the same exact thing we just saw previously, where this LLM prompt is taking the Asana member list and a query we inputted and comparing it to see which is the matching global ID number. Now, when looking at our Create Task module, we want to make sure all the information got there successfully. So we have the name of our task, the due date, our notes, the project global ID number, and Brooke's global ID number. Now we've successfully created a task in Asana, and we're just repeating this information into an LLM prompt just to make sure that the user gets a very clean and neat output. Now let's go to Asana and make sure our task was created successfully. And perfect. I can now see that there is our test task assigned to Brooke with the due date of June 22nd. With all these steps completed, your Asana Task Manager agent is set up and ready to help you manage tasks more efficiently. Thank you for joining the demo today. If you have any questions or feedback, feel free to let us know. See you next time.